Ahoy hoy! Welcome to the channel. This is the iFlight Nazgul Baby 63mm Nano. I believe that's what they call it. There's one that's 73, and then there's this little guy, 63. Little subtle differences. Mostly this one's frame is smaller. Runs a 35mm prop, and it comes with a TPU mount on top there. I uninstalled it and made my own little rubber band mounts. That way I could have any battery fit in there. They suggested a 300, but in my findings, I feel like a 300 is a little small. I'm running a 450, and even that has plenty of power to pull it, and getting a flight time of about 2.5 minutes, maybe at the most 2.5 minutes. There is a 75mm Whoop. That used to be my smallest drone. Now this is my smallest drone, and by a substantial amount as well. I mean, look at the thing. It's the size of a moth. I've legit seen moths bigger than this thing. It's pretty impressive how small it is. The camera, it's maybe 3/16 of an inch across. It's so small. It's the smallest camera I've ever seen on an FPV drone. Alright, let's take this little thing for a flight. This is the top of a parking garage here. It is a very windy day. Probably shouldn't be flying in winds this high, but I kind of wanted to see how it did, put it through its paces. Did better than a Whoop would have because of the, there's no ducks keeping the, catching the wind. There's just the props and the tiny frame, so it handles it okay. You do notice it though, which is to be expected. I mean, the thing is 63mm. It's freaking tiny. First thing I notice is the DVR is a little dark. I added a little bit of exposure in post to this DVR, so your DVR may be a little darker. You may need to add a little bit of exposure in your goggles or brightness or something. Once you get that dialed in, it's fine. Super flyable. Not even really a complaint, just what I noticed. The camera is so small that it's not surprising that the detail isn't immaculate, right? Trying to do some tricks here, not really succeeding because of the wind. It's just throwing me off too much, but still an enjoyable flight. You can see me, that's how bad the wind is there. I'm trying to go straight and I'm cocked that much. I don't know, maybe 8 to 12 miles an hour in certain spots, I'm not sure, but noticeable but flyable. Be perfect for like an indoor gymnasium or like a mall or something with a little bit of a taller ceiling. You could do flips, barrel rolls, all those things, no sweat. This day was even windier. I wouldn't call it gale force, but I wouldn't call it a light breeze either. I think it was probably in that same 8 to 12 mile per hour range. Like I said, it handles it okay. Surprising, honestly. I thought it would be worse. It's not unflyable. It's just you got to keep in mind the wind direction when you're flying or trying tricks. You may go forward here and catch a headwind and actually end up backwards when you're trying to roll over a tree. That actually happens to me here in a minute. I end up in the tree. This thing is so small, I'll lose it so fast. That's why I'm flying around trees that are about 10 feet tall at the most. Easy to get them out of there. And honestly, an 8 to 10 foot tall tree feels like a typical 5-inch on like a 25-foot tree that you would find at a park. It scales out really well. Like you don't really know that you're only the size of a moth. You're just kind of cruising, and as you see there, I ended up with a headwind and ended up in the tree, but no big deal. Just jiggle it on out. Boom. Have a great day. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the review, and if you buy this thing, I hope you enjoy the flights.